Hey guys, I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Kirsten, and we're the Joy Junkies.
Thank you for joining us for this next episode in which we discuss joy in the sacred. So there's a lot to be said for that. One of the main things that I thought of when preparing for this episode and thinking about the joy in the sacred is the difference, the analogy that I heard from a very, very wise man of the difference between the Stoic, the Addict, and the Mystic. And these three people, you may have never heard these terms before, maybe you have, the Stoic, the Addict, and the Mystic. They all have something in common because they're all seeking in the pursuit of joy. They're all looking for what truly satisfies them. They're all looking for what they were created for. But each of these three people end up seeking that out in totally different ways, in ways that either help or hinder and harm this pursuit that they all three have.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Was the storyteller were they saying that this is like there's a Stoic or an Addict or a Mystic in all of us, or is it sort of an approach to something?
It's more of like every person can pretty much fall under the category of Stoic, Addict, or Mystic.
When it comes to sacred or when it comes to joy?
When it comes to joy, but I mean it's very much related to the sacred, I think, because there's one of these three people that end up like entering into the sacred.
Okay.
In the joy falling into that as well.
Okay.
So, and that it'll make more sense as I hash it out. Definitely.
Yeah, there was some confusion in my own head, so I'm going to straighten it out just in case there was confusion in their heads.
So yeah, it's not necessarily saying that like, oh, there's a Stoic, an Addict, and a Mystic in all of us. Although I think there can be that truth to some different varying extents. But generally, you can be falling into one category or the other in life.
Depending on how we're pursuing.
Depending on how you're pursuing joy and fulfillment and contentment. So, hashing that out, great. We'll start with the Stoic. So the Stoic is somebody who has desire, and we all do, right? We all have the desire to connect, to be in relational capacity, to seek joy. But the Stoic is interesting in that the Stoic represses this desire. So although the desire, I know, it's sad, isn't it?
Yes.
Although the desire is there, they push it down. They don't entertain it. They just kind of squash it. So
it's almost like saying I don't have a need.
It's like saying I don't have a need,
wow.
actually. And
Sad.
it's not a good place to be psychologically, emotionally. And it's generally done out of fear of maybe thinking this need won't get met. And there's usually like lies and joy blockers that have to be pushed through and addressed to get past the Stoic.
The Stoic could develop as a result of those missed relationships or relationship ruptures.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. So I think that is true. We could each be a Stoic depending on how we deal with those things.
And have the tendencies or layers of that, or times when that comes up in our own life. I know I've had that experience before. I wouldn't say like I am a Stoic or I'm a recovering Stoic or anything like that necessarily.
I might be.
But I don't know. But because I feel like overall I've known you to be pretty in touch with your heart.
Well, more recently. But there's really a time in my life where I would have been more of a Stoic.
Yeah, because the Stoic really does shut the heart down. Doesn't acknowledge it, doesn't act out of the truth that the heart and the needs and the desires of the heart matter. So, and I think this is so fascinating. I love this whole topic. I love it. But the Stoic, is suppressing, repressing. So that's the Stoic.
And does the Stoic
or
judge,
Stoicism?
Is the Stoic kind of a judge of the other two? Are they a judger? I don't know. It feels to me like they might be like.
I wouldn't necessarily say I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But I know that the main thing with the Stoic is that they're just like shutting down, repressing, suppressing. I don't know if that's the same thing. Is repressing and suppressing the same thing?
No, I would say in this case those are probably good synonyms.
So that's the Stoics. That's one of these three different people.
Okay.
The second person actually I should say one more thing on the Stoic is you could pretty much parallel that to the starvation diet. So if you're eating, you're feeding, you're trying to be filled up with something, but you're not though. That's the whole point, is that you're starving yourself. You're not receiving what it is that you need. So you're really starving. So you're starved for you have a huge longing for what is good, but not actually choosing to fill it.
Yeah, you're not connecting with it and then seeking to have it
That's true.
filled.
You're disconnected from that ache, from that desire. So the Stoic you could equate with the starvation diet, if you will.
I like that.
So then there's the second one is the Addict. So the Addict would be one that really struggles with addiction, and by that I mean like lives their life mainly in that. And again, there can be tendencies of all three of these types of people in us, but the addict does something very different than the Stoic. The addict is in touch with the ache, but is trying to grasp after it the way that they think is going to work, but really won't.
So they're highly aware of their
They're
need.
grasping, and it's almost like too much. It is too much. It's an imbalance, and that overcomplicates things, quite honestly. So that whole joy and simplicity thing is not, it's not really a part of that life. So if you have the addict, you could compare that to the fast food diet. So it tastes really good going down, but then once it's actually in, it hurts. It's painful. It doesn't feel good.
An overload on pseudo joy.
Yeah, you could absolutely say that. It's a lot of trying to find the substitute to joy. Yeah, it's very much connected to that.
Well, and it sounds like maybe the addict is trying to fill the need themselves, maybe outside of relationship. There may be relationships present. They're not getting their need filled by the relationship.
Because there's a lot of isolation in that. That's where isolation would be rampant.
So it's kind of empty. There's an emptiness to
Very
it.
much.
They're grasping, but they're still empty.
So in touch with the ache, and with the desire for love and for joy, relational connection, but they're feeding it far too much to the point where they can't enjoy it. They can't enjoy it for the good that it truly is, because there's just too much, and it's constant, and there's no balance. It's very controlled. There's no open receptivity to the good gift that is. I know.
There's just so much deep there.
I know, it's
so
a
much
lot.
deep there. I'm not sure we're gonna go as deep as we can in this video with this. This is good stuff. So we have the Stoic and the
Christopher
addict.
West taught me this. He's great.
So this is part of theology of the body.
It is part of theology of the body.
Okay, good to know. Good to
That's
know.
where I learned it from.
Okay, so there's a Stoic who is disconnected.
Repress.
The addict who is very connected, but kind of seeking on their own and overindulging.
So they're like half in reality, whereas the Stoic is not. Is not connected to reality. The addict is partially.
That's what we're doing with our needs. So what's the mystic? Because that one intrigues me.
Yeah. So the third one would not be the Stoic or the addict, but would be the mystic. And the mystic is not the one who's on the starvation diet, is not the one on the fast food diet, but the one who goes after the feast. So this is the one who has the feast, and this is done. What they say is that there's a combination of fasting and feasting in this one, because there's a proper order, there's a proper balance, there's prudence. They're not grasping. They're more, they've entered more into like the natural realm of relationship and like the naturalness, if that's a word, of that. So the mystic actually receives a lot more than the Stoic and the addict combined, because the mystic is in touch with their desire and what they want, what they crave, and what they were created for. But they're not trying to just get it all on their own. They're willing and open to enter into a relationship. And there's a certain aspect of the mystic that's really important that is receptive.
Ooh, I love that.
The mystic is receptive and can receive.
The signal's on, the hot spot's on, and they're receptive to receive. They're not just grasping after. So they're like seeking, but they're not grasping.
So they're getting the real deal. They're not just going after a substitute. They're the happiest type of person, I'd say. and I would say that definitely connects to the sacred, joy in the sacred.
Right, because if it's all on and you're in pursuing your pillars of joy, the innocent perception, the self-compassion, the forgiveness, the gratitude, then you are more open. And I was thinking about the rhythm of joy and rest as we were talking about the mystic. Like, you can engage and then you can rest, and then you can engage and then you can rest. It's not like you have to just open up the portal and just suck it all in like a big vacuum. That sounds like the addict. Or you don't have to deny it. I don't know if we have talked about the rhythms of joy and quiet. We may need to do that in a future
Yeah, if we
episode.
haven't, that's really important.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
We should do that.
The rhythms of joy and quiet are really, you can't just be all open to joy all the time, because our brains can't take
It's
that
overload.
much.
That's actually,
It
there's an
is.
addict portion of that.
Yeah. So you have to have quiet, and I think we'll talk about that. We'll go deeper in that later on, because there's a whole thought around that. But it seems to me that the mystic has found that rhythm, and they're not dependent on getting their need met, because they know that just by being open and receptive, their need will be met.
So there's a trust. It's really big.
There's a teaching that I heard several years ago. I think the individual who said it was Larry Crabb. I did a spiritual direction training. She has some yummies over here. You should. Sweet Tea has some yummies. I tried to eat mine, but I couldn't.
You should show them it.
I know it's so. Look at that.
It's like a cheesecake, cream
tart
pie
thing. Oh, anyway,
something like that.
this
Sorry.
That's all right. I think they should know what we're doing. So what Larry Crabb said is when we're connected with God, and we know that He is the giver of all good things, then when we have a need, we are going to go to God, and we're going to accept that He's going to meet our need through whatever way He chooses to meet that need. He's going to meet our desires.
Really
It
part of
is
that
key.
phrase. However He chooses.
However He chooses.
Yeah.
And so when I'm with you and I have a need, I know that God's going to meet my need however He chooses, so I can rest in your presence.
Oh,
So I don't have to deny my need, and I don't have to try to pull whatever I need from you. I can just trust that my need is going to be met, and I can rest in your presence.
which makes the relationship all the more simple because there's not manipulation or fear, but there's trust and there's joy.
Yeah, and
as a result.
it opens us to all of the pillars of joy, and then the blockers. Like it makes it harder for those blockers to come in and grab onto us and take root, because we can let go of those things easier.
Right.
So this is kind of a quick one, but the reality is, the Stoic, Addict, and Mystic is. Yeah, that's true. We're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
We're looking at the time because we're trying to be really aware of how much time we're taking as we display these things. But I think as we've shared the Stoic, Addict, and Mystic, I think there's a little bit of that in all of us. As I've listened to you, there's a little bit of that in all of us, and we might go back and forth between Stoic and Addict as we're looking for the rhythm of Mystic.
Oh, and actually, I heard someone say that it's very normal to go into a Stoic approach at certain times. That in fact, if you're, for example, I do, this is important. I forgot this.
Good.
I'm glad you brought that up. If you have, been stuck in the addict place of living, you're grasping, you're so far over here on the extreme, and you know that the mystic is all the way over here. What you're probably going to do is swing really far over to the Stoic side, but that actually balances you out and brings you back to the middle where the mystic is. So
there's something natural about that.
There is this natural imbalance that actually can happen where you are far on one side and then you swing really far over, and then eventually you get balanced and settled out in the mystic zone. But so therefore, if you are struggling with stoicism or something like that, don't be too discouraged, because that can be a very, very natural part of the journey, of the healing journey, and specifically, which is why I said, I've had that struggle before. So there's something normal about that. But fortunately, if you continue to seek joy, you won't stay there.
So the big question this week is, where do you find yourself right now? Do you find yourself being more the Stoic, more the Addict, or are you really seeking that balance as the mystic? And where are you sharing your joy? I always want to ask that question. Where are you sharing your joy? Because it's so important to be the mystic. When you receive it, the joy, you need to share it too. So where are you sharing your joy? You want to give our email address?
Sure. And I do also just want to encourage you all, I have to say, I do want to encourage you all that the mystic, finds the most joy, and so it really is connected in the sacred because of that. So the email is 2joyjunkies@gmail.com. If you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to email us at that. And thank you for joining us this week.
Take care. Bye-bye.